surprised. It really wasn't on my radar. I had a successful career at Liberty, but I never really saw myself as the standout athlete that would warrant such an honor. So I was really, really surprised and humbled by it. It was quite an honor and not something that I saw coming. I always wanted to compete more than anything. And as a young kid, probably around 6 years old, I was introduced to track and found that that was an area that I excelled at, and also that there are so many ways you could compete, so I loved it. And I remember in the '92 Olympics watching and going, that would be amazing to compete at that stage. But never really thinking that that was a possibility, because I was very aware of my surroundings and my ability levels and everything else. But that was always kind of a dream of mine, was to compete with the best at that level. I have an older sister, and I was really young, and I remember going to one of her track meets, and they had a fun run, and that was my first exposure to track and field. The story goes that my parents said that I said really confidently, I'm going to win that race, and then I went down and I won it. And that was kind of my first taste of competing and the thrill of running and everything that goes with it. I don't know if I fully knew until it actually happened that I could compete at the level I did. I knew I was going to be successful. I could obviously see that I was competitive and in the mix, but it took me a while to figure out where I would compete, because I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't necessarily jumping the farthest or the highest, so I was always looking for an event where I could be competitive. I did the long jump, I did the 100, the 200, the 800, anything I could find. And then when I was about a 5th grader, maybe sometime around there, I discovered the pentathlon, because that's what they had for that age, and discovered this is something I could be pretty good at. And that's when I set my sights on, I want to compete at the college level. And as I progressed in it, I realized this could take me farther, but I didn't really ever think that it would take me as far as it did. In high school, I said, maybe I can walk onto a Division I team. You know, that was kind of my goal at that point. At high school, it kind of moved, my vision kind of grew a little bit. Can I compete at that level? And then I remember as I was getting ready to go into college, talking to an athlete and saying, I want to qualify for nationals. I think I could do that. And then after my freshman year, qualifying for nationals, okay, I want to be in the mix of it. And so it just kind of grew a little bit more and a little bit more. And even my senior year here, I considered, okay, I'm done with track now, because college is over and it's time to get a job and start the rest of my life. And God laid it on my heart that maybe I wasn't done. And a grad school opportunity opened up where I could compete at that next level with one of the premier coaches in the world at that time. And so I went to Kansas State and trained under Coach Revelto and stepped up my game a little bit more and was able to compete internationally, and it just continued to grow. And every time I was like, well, maybe I can get to that next level and that next level. So I can't really say that at any point in my life I looked at it and said, I'm going to be an Olympian and I know I can do it. It was always, oh, I can get to this, and then I'll get to this level, and then I'll get to this level, and every step is stretching me a little bit farther and a little bit farther. I definitely had help, but my internal drive is what pushed more than anything. My parents were a huge support, but their support was more encouraging me to not let track define me, not let that be what determined my value. They would encourage me they remind me to have fun, to enjoy the moment, those type of things. And so internally, my internal drive is what really kind of pushed me forward. At a young age, I figured out that source of motivation, and kind of found, I guess it's kind of a gift in a way. I discovered that and used that to push me farther than I thought I ever would. I remember the day my dad said, he printed off a web page. You need to check out Liberty University, because I was looking for schools, but I wanted to go to a Christian school and I wanted to go to a Division I school, and that limited your choices drastically. A real Christian school, not one just in name. And so I looked it up and I sent out my stuff to Coach, and he brought me out for a visit. And I still wasn't quite sure. I liked the teammates, I liked the environment, but it's a long way from home, so it was a big jump and a big commitment for me. And I wrestled with it, and I remember praying about it and asking my parents, and they said, you need to figure this out, and prayed about it and prayed about it. And I just felt, one night I was sitting in my room and writing in my journal, and I felt God saying, that's where you need to be. And so I called Coach the next day and gave him the verbal commitment, and he sent the paperwork, and we went that route. But yeah, it was one of those, it was a leap of faith, because it was halfway across the country for me, but it was exactly where God had me going. I loved it. I'm one of those unusual people that enjoy the work that goes into it too. Not every workout, but I loved being on the track. I loved the feeling of working at it and seeing my improvement. I loved the athletes, my teammates that I competed with. Some of my closest friends even now were athletes that I competed with and against, because athletes have a different way of thinking of things, and so they can relate to you, and nobody else in the rest of the world, it seems like they think you're strange or, you know, crazy. And that was fun. The coaches made it fun. It was work, don't get me wrong. I mean, we spent a lot of hours out on the track, but they were always, they understood how long the season could be. And so they would encourage us to, you know, to laugh in the middle of it all. And that was always a lot of fun. More than anything, it became your family away from home. And just like any family, you find ways of making the mundane interesting. My first one was at Big South Indoor my freshman year, and that was the first year that we were at risk of losing Big South. Before that, we had pretty much dominated. And so at that meet, I was running all over the track, because as a heptathlete, I was entered in the 100 hurdles, the high jump, the long jump, the triple jump, and the 4x4, and all these things, and they were all going on at the same time. So I can't tell you necessarily which one was my first win. I do remember my most memorable, and that was part of a 4x4 relay team that we thought we had to win the relay to win the meet, and it ended up not playing out that way, but that's how we went into it. And I was with upperclassmen who carried the team, and Coach, for some reason, put me on anchor leg. He said it was because I hated to lose. And the competitor from High Point caught me with probably about 75 meters left to go on an indoor track, and this was at Virginia Tech, and it's a small indoor facility, and it was loud, and the teams were surrounding it because the championship was on the line, and all of our fans were on one side and all of the High Point fans were on the other side, so as you ran around, you know, they were right in your face. And she caught me with about 75 meters to go, and I don't know how, but I held her off. I didn't run the fastest split, but I held her off, and just the feeling of coming through and the team being there and being part of that team was something I will never forget. The adrenaline that went with that it was amazing. Especially as a track athlete, when a lot of times you're competing by yourself. It was pretty amazing to be part of that group with the other ladies, and actually the men's and the women's team combined, we circled around, we rallied around that. I would actually bring it probably back to the Big South Championship. Some of those meets when there was a couple of them, especially the outdoor, where we were involved, the other heptathletes as well, were involved in so many individual events, and the toll over a 3-day meet on your body and on your emotions during that was extraordinary. That level of fatigue I've rarely ever reached since. And being able to come through that and see the results of that hard work and just plugging through it, that's probably what I'd say the most proud of. It was at, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but it was at Radford, I remember it. just one event after another, and there was a couple of us that just were exhausted. And being able to come through that and to be competitive and to help the team was probably what I'm most proud of, beyond even my individual accomplishments, for sure. In many different ways. One is I know how to deal with fatigue very well. I know how to keep moving when I am exhausted and don't feel like I can. I've learned that you take emotion out of situations and it's a whole lot easier to deal with them as far as the energy level, to stay even keel. But the biggest thing I would say is I've learned balance. As a freshman coming into Liberty, I was the type that would be at the track until they kicked me off, and I was in the weight room and just I was going to master my body, and I was beating it into submission, so to speak. And I had some coaches, especially Coach Bingham, that taught me that it's all about balance. It's about rest, and yes, it's about working hard, but it's also about rest and that balance with it all. And as a mother, I feel that that is one of the most valuable lessons I've learned from track and field, is how to keep things in balance. Balancing with discipline and teaching and love and that aspect, but also just balance with my time, spending time with the kids and spending time taking care of things around the house or in the community or with my church or whatever it is, keeping those things in balance and not going solely focused on one area of my life. And I attribute that to my time here at Liberty, as far as life skills. And beyond that, it's the things I think most athletes learn: humility, a lot of grace,